Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We'll just wait until 10:02 maybe, because I see people are joining, and then we will kick off with today's webinar. Okay, I see we have quite a number of people joining. That's great. So I'm delighted to welcome you to today's event on Nordic and Baltic perspectives on achieving renewable heating and cooling as a roundtable discussion, which is organized by the European Technology and Innovation Platform on Renewable Heating and Cooling. The event is hosted by EUREC, the Association of European Renewable Energy Research Centers, and EDGEC, the European Geothermal Energy Council. Please, next slides. My name is Leonie Kuhlmann. I am Policy Officer at EDGEC, and I will be today's moderator. On the next slide, you can see the agenda. So after this short welcome, you will hear a presentation about the RHC itself and some information on funding opportunities. Afterwards, we will listen to a presentation on the Nordic power market outlook and heat electrification, and then dive into the different renewable heating and cooling technologies, starting with solar thermal, geothermal, then heat pumps, and the district heating. And afterwards, there will be a Q&A session. This already brings me to some housekeeping. For all questions that will be addressed at the end during the Q&A session, please post them in the dedicated Q&A chat, which should be within your Teams window, so we can compile the questions at the end of the webinar. Also, the webinar is going to be recorded. And with that, I'll pass the floor to my colleague Andre, who is a project manager at EUREC, and will give you a presentation about the RHC and information on funding opportunities. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Leonie. Good morning, everyone. I will just give a very quick presentation on the platform and what type of information, especially in this case on funding opportunities, you can find through the platform's website. So very briefly about the RHC-ETIP. It was founded in 2008 and recognized as an European technology and innovation platform by the European Commission in 2016. The platform brings together stakeholders from the biomass, geothermal, solar thermal, district heating, and cooling, and heat pump sector. The ultimate goal is to bring forward a common strategy for increasing the use of renewable energy technologies for heating and cooling, and especially in the case of the platform through agreeing on a common set of R&I priorities for the sector, and also advocate that RHC technologies are safe, clean, efficient, and increasingly cost competitive. They also have societal benefit from the increasing contribution of renewable heating and cooling to the EU, and the platform showcases the combining improved and new technologies, innovation and development, as well as policy, funding, and pilot projects. Here you can see on a nice picture the structure of the platform. So there are pools of experts, which we call technology panels. As I mentioned, there is one on solar thermal, biomass, geothermal, heat pump, district heating, cooling, and thermal storage. And since 2019, there are also horizontal working groups which cut across these technology panels and aim to bring more end-user focused solutions for buildings, district, cities, industries. And since recently, there is also a horizontal working group on social sciences and humanities, focusing especially on this societal aspect of the transition towards renewable heating and cooling. The goals of the platforms are to develop working relationships with other relevant national and regional platforms, establish and update strategic research and innovation agendas, as I mentioned, coming with a unified set of priorities for research and innovation. Also identify priorities of cross-cutting nature, such as education, training, skills, socio-economic aspects. Identify innovation barriers, notably those related to regulation and financing, and also report on the implementation of these R&I activities at European, national, and industrial level. The RHC platform website brings to the stakeholders a set of, we hope, quite useful tools. One of them is the Renewable Heating and Cooling Projects database, which tracks past and ongoing projects in the area of renewable heating and cooling. The focus is on those which are funded at EU level, but there are also some national ones in the database, and the results of these projects are, when possible, also presented. Since this year, the platform also launched its RHC Accelerator, which tries to bridge the gap between research projects and market-ready solutions. And this accelerator is basically a database of research projects seeking expert assistance, but also a directory of investors and experts who can support project developers. So if you are an expert in renewable heating and cooling, you can sign up for being part of this database, and you can help bring very good projects to the market. There is also a repository of funding schemes. So through this one, you have access to EU funding schemes catalog, but also national funding schemes dataset, which is quite exhaustive and we hope very useful. On this slide, you can see the national funding schemes dataset, which is, as I mentioned, comprehensive. It covers all EU 27 countries, and the mapping includes financing schemes across sectors such as building envelope, heating and cooling efficiency, renewable energy for heating, cooling, etc., etc. And you can, of course, filter through country. So you can, in this case, of course, filter to find the funding opportunities for the countries that you come from. There is also further funding-related information, such as I mentioned, database of investors relevant for RHC technologies, insight into RHC-related EU legislation, list of national contact points, and also in time we will also add some success stories. So it's still work in progress, but the accelerator has been officially launched, so it is operational. And here you can see the tab on the website through which you can access it. So this was my very brief presentation on the platform and what it can hopefully offer to the stakeholders and help them in their work. And now I would give floor back to Loni.
Thank you very much, Andre. I think it's always useful to understand what the RHC platform really is about, and then funding opportunities, I guess, is quite interesting for all the participants of today's webinar. I have now the pleasure to give the floor to Alexander Esser, who is working for Aurora Energy, a research think tank, and he is head of the Nordics and the Baltics. His presentation will focus on the Nordic power market outlook and the heat electrification. The floor is yours, Alexander.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And so I'll discuss today our outlook on the Nordic power markets. I think it's quite relevant then as part of the decarbonization of the heat sector is a strong part of the decarbonization of the heat sector is, of course, the electrification. So it's important to understand how the electricity market works in the Nordics and how this evolves going forward. So today I will look into this market. I'll provide you with our analysis on how we think supply and demand for electricity is evolving, which role, for example, also the consumption from the heat sector plays. Especially, I'll look a bit into the role of large boilers in Finland, I will also give an outlook on electricity prices that we model. Leonie already said that I'm heading our Nordics and Baltics business, but maybe just a few words on what we do at Aurora. We are actually a global power market or energy market analytics firm. So I sit with a team around 30 people in Stockholm, from where we cover the Baltics and Nordics, but we have presences across the world with a focus on the liberalized power markets. And what we mostly do is provide long-term forecasts for energy markets with a strong focus on electricity. And today I will share our outlook on the Nordics, which is also available to you as a subscription if you're interested. So just reach out to me after the call, and I can connect you with the right people. So I'd like to start with a bit of an overview of how the Nordic power market works. By Nordics, I mean the markets from Denmark over Norway, Sweden to Finland, and overall this is structured in 12 different bidding areas. Historically, at least in Norway and Sweden, the prices in those bidding areas were actually quite correlated, quite aligned. But starting in 2019, those prices have actually diverged a lot, as you can see here in this light gray chart. So especially the north of the Nordics have much lower prices than the south due to some constraints in the transmission and interconnection in the countries, and also a large surplus of electricity in the north. And I will look into a little bit how this will evolve going forward. But overall, our finding is that prices will converge by the 2030s. When we look at the supply and demand, we think actually demand is increasing over time in the Nordics. One driver is, of course, the electrification of heat. Others are the electrification of industry and transport. Plus power to X, power to hydrogen, for example, and new demand areas such as data centers to power the AI revolution. But I'll come to the demand in detail a bit. On the right-hand side, you'll see here how we think the supply is evolving. So as of today, the Nordic power system has an abundance of hydropower and a very fast-growing wind and solar sector, and it's a large exporter of electricity, which is shown here by the light red part below the chart. So a lot of electricity is exported to the continent, to Germany, to Great Britain, but also to the Baltics. Going forward, we believe in a strong build-out of wind and solar. Partly also peaking capacities in order to have electricity in hours where the wind is not blowing or the sun is not shining. However, we think hydropower has only a smaller potential in terms of build out in the future. But there are some projects that are quite interesting also, providing pumped hydro or looking into pumped hydro technologies or simply new reservoirs. But the large growth is really coming from solar and wind. Wind mostly onshore. At some point, we will see also a pickup of offshore. There are some projects in Norway, for example. The projects in Sweden have a bit more of a question mark given the regulatory environment. Now, let's dive a little bit into the underlying parts of our scenario. And this is actually our central scenario. So it's not a government scenario that meets a certain net zero target. It's what we think is the most likely scenario. So we have our own view on demand and supply and then model the European power system. Here you see our outlook on demand. Overall, electricity demand in the Nordics comes mostly from Sweden and Norway, which represents 70% of the demand today. But we see very strong growth actually coming from Denmark, which in our view is growing the fastest. So it's growing at ×3 by 2060, which is of course quite far out. But even this decade, we believe in a quite strong growth of electricity demand from different sectors. The most pronounced sector in our view in the long term is actually the hydrogen sector, which will consume a lot of electricity, but also the electrification of transport and heat, which is not shown as an own category, but I'll talk about this in a bit. Overall, we see Denmark is expected to grow the fastest, then followed by Sweden and Finland, and Norway is a bit slower, but generally we expect that all of those electricity markets grow in consumption. When it comes to the heat sector, we already see that the Nordics have one of the highest rates of electrification of heat. So if you look at today's demand, a good chunk of this is consumed by heat pumps in residential and commercial buildings, by district heating networks, and increasingly we see a shift in district heating networks, which I thought is worth a bit of a deep dive here. So especially in Finland, we see more electric boilers being used to decarbonize and fuel the district heating demand. So our forecast is that by 2030 there will be 3 gigawatts of additional electric boilers. So those are large-scale electric boilers to support the district heating network in Finland. And this is pretty much aligned also with what we see is already commissioned. So 1.3 gigawatts in our view is already commissioned, and another gigawatt is either has reached investment decisions or is even under construction. So there is a very strong pipeline of decarbonization of the district heating networks via large-scale electric boilers. What is driving this? Of course, the requirement to decarbonize, but also other policy incentives, such as very low electricity taxes for such electric boilers in Finland. The fear of security of supply concerns and overall high gas prices, and especially the ban on the import of Russian biomass, which has been historically been used to fuel or to fire heat or cogeneration plants in Finland. This has been the main drivers. How will this affect the electricity markets? I mean, the interesting aspect with those boilers is that they can be run quite flexible, so they can be ramped up and down quickly. So they will provide some form of demand response, so demand flexibility to the power market, and can definitely also make use of the large amount of negative prices on the electricity markets that we currently see. So there's a strong dynamic and very interesting dynamic between the build out of electric boilers in Finland and the power market. Now let's briefly look at the supply side. I mentioned this already. Here on the left-hand side, you see the supply build out in capacity. Overall, we believe in 100 gigawatts of additional supply capacity across the Nordics. The largest growth coming from onshore wind and solar. Offshore wind is only picking up in the 2030s, so a delayed and there is a lot of uncertainty around offshore wind, especially in Finland and Sweden. And on the generation side, you'll see that the Nordics will remain a net exporter of electricity, and that a share of 90% of renewables by 2060 can be reached. Today, this is roughly around 80%. So another 10% increase of renewables in the generation. I think I've 2 more minutes. So I thought it's worth to look at prices. So this we have a power market model that reflects all European bidding areas. We model on a plant-by-plant basis and model an hourly price clearing. And this is the result of our modeling. So our central case for the Nordics. You see, we're starting actually with quite high spread of prices across the Nordics, north of Sweden and Norway at very low prices of around 20 euros per megawatt hour, while Denmark at the top with around 80 euros per megawatt hour. And for the remaining years of our decade, we believe that prices start to converge as additional grid is being built out. Most prominent one are, for example, the Nord-Süd link between the north of Sweden and the south of Sweden, or the Aurora line between Finland and Sweden. So this will help for the price correlation, and mostly it will actually lift the prices in the north of Sweden and the north of Norway. Then in the long term, so the 2030s, we believe in a strong build out of renewables, which is counterbalancing increasing effects from higher carbon prices, higher consumption, and in the long run also again higher gas price. And that then stabilizes prices across the 30s. Yeah, that's actually my slide. I think I managed exactly 12 minutes. Then happy to hand over back to you, Leonie, I suppose.
Thank you very much. Great presentation, very interesting. I particularly like the part on electrification of heat, because I think it's very timely as we are talking about increasing electrification and that it also touches upon heat. So thank you very much for the presentation. And now I'm pleased to give the floor to Markus Kanewolf, who is CEO of Dual Sun Nordic and will tell us more about PVT panels. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Leone. So let's see if it works as it should.
Yes, we can see full screen. Perfect. Good.
Oh, perfect. And also now. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. The presentation topic is 6 times more energy from the rooftops and maximum self-consumption and energy classification. And what is maybe more interesting is how can this technology be used in combination with heat pumps and geothermal, also district heating, all 3 topics coming after me, and create new innovative solutions for improving the energy labeling on European buildings. To the right, you see a solar cell, which is often called PV panel, photovoltaic panel. And this is the part. A PVT, it means photovoltaic thermal. And on the backside of such a panel, you have a heat exchanger, and you see part of it here. So it converts the solar energy to thermal energy, and it also extracts energy from the air. So PVT is solar hybrid panels, electricity and heating from one panel. Dual Sun, which I'm representing, is a French producer of PVT, production near Lyon and head office in Marseille. And we are also a supplier of PV panels, since it's often a combination between PVT and PV in projects. We try to drive the industry and develop with KMARC certification, EPD, and be active in the industry. When people think about solar energy, I believe at least 90–95% think about PV panels, converting solar energy into electricity with approx 22% efficiency. Another old technology is solar thermal, used for mainly hot water, but still 3 times more efficient than PV. 60% efficiency. However, a small downside that if there is stagnation, meaning no circulation in the circuit, it can reach very high temperatures, creating some challenges, boiling and pressure loss. And then you have solar hybrid panels, PVT, which again is a combination of a solar cell with a heat exchanger on the backside, but in direct connection with the air. And that means even if there is a stagnation, it can never build up a high temperature. In Nordic, it's 60-65 degrees, just like a standard PV panel. And that makes the solutions very robust and reliable. And the yield is depending very much on the application. There are good applications and there are not that good applications. And I will try to show 3 good applications in Nordic climate. But firstly, to make it less abstract, just to see the backside, a heat exchanger, it's a box channel, micro channel. And here is a fluid, it's glycol, circulating from panel to panel, but also through these micro channels. So the production is made in one panel, and then they are in parallel hydraulically. But electrical, it's just like PV. So PV installers take care of the mounting of the rows or groups with this interpanel connection for the hydraulic circuit. And then from here, where you have a thread in the inlet and outlet, it's a plumber's work or heat pump installer work. So it's very clear, and disciplines don't have to wait for each other. So how is it then possible to extract 6 times more energy from the rooftops compared to if we are supplying standard PV panels? Well, we get electricity as with PV, one part. Then we get additional electricity since we are cooling the solar cells with the heat pump or towards the geothermal storage. So it was 22% becoming electricity. The rest is heat losses. And those are taken care of on the backside with a heat exchanger. So then you have 3 times more energy. But the PVT is also an air-to-water heat exchanger. So the main part comes from surrounding air. And that appears even in night, and if it's a rainy day, it's just depending on the temperature. So this is an important knowledge and a big reason why it's so efficient. So how can we use this technology in the Nordics? One very good application is what we call PVT source heat pump. It's also mentioned as a Repower Europe solution because you connect the hybrid panels with a liquid to water heat pump, also called brine heat pump, without boreholes or any other ground loops. And that could be really good in cities where you have subways or very small plots as a quiet solution, no noise, and an inside solution, very resilient. Another application is existing borehole storages that have gotten cold. And that happens over time if you increase the heat pump capacity without extending the storage system. Or if we have high-profile projects where we need to improve the heat pump COP throughout the year with solar energy. And the third option is to optimize geoenergy storage, or as we say, to enable more geothermal energy systems in Europe. And we can do that by making the distance between the boreholes shorter to make the storage system more dense. fewer boreholes if necessary, if it's a small plot, or more shallow if there are challenges with the drilling. So those three are the main options. They're really good business cases in the Nordics. So how does the PVT affect the system? If we go a little bit into detail, this is a real project. It's in Stockholm, a small multifamily house with a heat pump and 3 cold boreholes of 150 meters each. So the board has to decide between doing nothing, install 30 PV panels, or 30 PVT panels. And the blue line shows the existing temperature in the boreholes. And as you can see, 6-7 degrees, 3-4 months, that's the breaking point where the heat pump couldn't run. So it has to go full electricity. With recharge, we could come to this situation and have the heat pump in operation with good performance throughout the year. The peak energy usage fell from 8,000 kilowatt hour per month down to 3,700. The system performance factor was 2.2, which is quite low for a geothermal heat pump. But that could be raised to 3.7 with recharge, just to have the normal good conditions in the boreholes. And then again, it's a very good solution for heating and hot tap water, 3.7. And if we look at the economy for this association, if we had installed 30 PV panels for them, we could reduce the purchase energy with 8%, but having good conditions for the heat pump and the borehole storage, we could reduce the peak energy use a lot, and we could make a 37% saving for this association. So that's a practical example how it affects the combination with heat pump and geothermal storage. If we look at energy labeling, this is a bigger project, also in Stockholm actually, a big multifamily house built in 1940 on a very small plot where geothermal heating wasn't possible traditionally, but by reducing the distance between the boreholes from 20 to 13 meters, it was possible. So today they use district heating. We could add PV, that would be a 3% decrease of purchase energy. We could go with a heat pump or PVT source heat pump that could give them 33, and with a full geothermal solution, minus 71. And if we look at weighted energy, which is the basis for the energy labeling, it looks like this. The system has a D, it's clean district heating in this area, and they also made a lot of activities. So D for a 1940-year-old or 1940 building is very good. They changed windows and ventilation. So with PV, it will still be a D. With PVT source heat pump, we could reach a C, and with a full geothermal, a B. And yeah, the B is green because it also means green loans and good financing. So that's an example of how we can handle all the existing buildings in a very constructive way. We also have 2 new building apartment projects. Both are actually with Skanska. The first one is in Sweden. It's a 10-floor multifamily house as a net zero energy building. This part is PVT. This is PV. You have a heat pump and 6 boreholes. This project is up in Norway, in Trondheim, and it's actually the first multi-family house in the world as plus energy building. And these buildings are net producer of 2 kilowatt-hour per square meter a year to the grid. Here you have PVT panels, and on the backside you have PV panels, good heat pump, and geothermal storage. And then we have 2 projects with PVT source heat pump, meaning no boreholes at all. And let's stay up in beautiful Norway. This is in Bergen. It's called Ado Arena. It's a swimming hall, quite luxurious, nice adventure. And they wanted to improve the energy labeling. And they did it with a local solution, a CO2 heat pump with 228 PVT panels. And that alone gave a reduction of purchased district heating of 30%. And actually in this case in Bergen, with the conditions and big pools to deliver energy, we have a heat factor 12 times more than if we deliver just PV. But that's exceptional. Another project where it was a beautiful combination with district heating is in Lund. It's close to Malmö in south of Sweden. Multi-family house where they had to reach energy class A, and that wasn't possible with district heating alone. But with a combination of PVT and a heat pump, we could handle 50% of the energy, come to energy class A, and this was coordinated and by the local energy company. So the district company became heroes and everyone was happy. And I think, do you have the time for me, Leonie?
It's okay. I think
okay.
if you want to, you can finish the presentation, no worries.
Yeah, so I will finish now, and for you receiving the documentation, I would recommend to see this film. It's a 3-minute film. An installer explains the journey from class G to B, but that will be later. So I would like to say thank you very much, and over to you, Leona.
Perfect, Marcus. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very insightful. I learned a lot for sure. And I also like very much that you highlighted all your, well, the technology with different examples and different fields of application, which I think is very useful. And as well, it bridges very well to our next speaker, as you mentioned geothermal already several times. I'm happy to give the floor to Helena Galen, who is the head of department for geothermal at the Geological Survey of Estonia. And she will tell us more about medium deep geothermal in Estonia. Also, I would just like to remind all participants, if you have any questions already, feel free to post them in the chat. We will address them later, so you have all time, of course, to post them. But in case you already would like to share them, feel free to do so. And now the floor is yours, Helena. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the possibility to present from Estonia our medium deep geothermal energy pilot project. I'm Helena Galen from Geological Survey of Estonia. Briefly overview about our Estonian geothermal boreholes for heating. In Estonia, the temperatures are quite low, in our like 10 to 15 degrees. So we need to use ground source heat pumps to use this heat from ground. But already for today, approximately 6,000 closed loop geothermal boreholes are installed. Few boreholes are for open loop system, like 100. But we see that there has been a high increase to use this technology since 2022, and there has been increase in ground source heat pump sales like twice more than 2016. And why I'm talking to medium deep boreholes based technology is that there is interest to use this geothermal energy at densely populated areas as these horizontal loops and also lower boreholes, they still need free land to install these. But if the energy need for houses or buildings are high, then there are not enough free land for horizontal loops or lower boreholes. And sometimes there is already the existing landscaping done, and it's not easy to do it again or use this land. So in 2021, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications initiated the project GeoEnest with budget of 3.8 million, and it is from sales revenue from greenhouse gas emissions trading. So the aim of this project is to support the objectives of Estonian energy and climate policy and to see whether this medium deep geothermal boreholes system, they help to reach closer to the renewable energy usage for heating, and also to reduce fuel-based energy usage. So for today, the project is in the final stage. We have 3 pilot stations installed, and the conclusions for the first heating period I will talk today from these 3 pilot plants. So in Estonia, we've chosen 3 locations. First in Tallinn, Taludevahe pilot plant, second in the middle of Estonia, Roosna-Alliku, and the third one in Arbavere, 3 different pilot projects. And those blue marked place, it's the next project we will do in the next few years, and we will test open loop system, as these 3 what I'm going to talk are closed loop system and coaxial system. Briefly about geology, we have acknowledged that our North Estonia has the similar crystalline basement as in South Finland, and Finland is they have more knowledge about this rocks and this geothermal energy usage. So we wish to test also this geology, how this Rabakivi granite, what is the thermal capacity and potential of this. So we see this pink area across the Tallinn area where this granite is occurring, and it's important to notice that the Tallinn area is more densely populated, so it is interest about this geological aspect more precise. So the first pilot station in Tallinn, it is with 46 apartment house, we using natural gas with radiator heating, and domestic hot water is produced. This annual energy consumption has been 420 megawatt hours per year, and this maximum monthly energy need is 85 megawatt hours. So we drilled there Estonian first deepest geothermal well, 505 meters. In the drill hole, there is 350 meters Rabakrivi granite that is most interested part of this borehole. And there are covering layers of sedimentary rocks. So installed in this borehole double U-tube collector pipe with total length of 2,000 meters. And as the temperatures are quite low, they're like 14 degrees, we use ground source heat pump oil on with the power of 76 kilowatts. And what are the results of the first heating period? We saw that the average heat load of the borehole is like 45-50 kilowatts. And about 77% of the total heat energy demand was covered by the ground source heat pump in the last heating period. So this yellow line shows the natural gas energy use before the heat pump, and this orange line shows after the ground source heat pump was installed. And we see that the gap is replaced with geothermal energy. And this coefficient of performance we calculated is approximately 3 to 4. Yes. And some information about the costs. We calculated that the direct cost is approximately 46 euros per megawatt hour. That is 60% cheaper than the price of the district heating, this natural gas energy. This direct cost consists mostly electricity, cost for electricity. However, if we add here also the investment cost, then it is still lower price than this district heating energy price. But this is the first heating period, and we will see how the next years the results will be for the provided energy, how much energy we can get from this one borehole. And second pilot station is in the middle of Estonia. There we have a district heating network to heat kindergarten, apartment building, municipality service building. The buildings are quite not very insulated, and the heating temperature has to be quite high. So the geothermal energy we use cannot be used like in single use, as the temperature has to be high, like more than 60 degrees. Then we have to use still the existing oil shale oil boiler that is 500 kilowatts. And we installed there 400 kilowatts oil on ground source heat pump that is using four a bit more than 500 meter boreholes to acquire this heat. We actually drilled there 5 boreholes, but the 5th one has been terminated as there were problems with pressure. And also the first year results, we saw that in average 74 megawatt hours per month is the heat production, and the heat power is 110 kilowatts. So we see that the installed capacity is a bit overestimated. When we installed 400 kilowatt heat pump, then the actual usage is 110 kilowatts. And the coefficient of performance is rather low, like 3.2. And we are still struggling how to put together this old existing system with oil shale oil plant together with this new ground source heat pump. And there are some work has to be done with this automation and so on. But still, the first heating period showed quite good result in costs, as it is lower than the district heating price, 70 euros per megawatt hour. Our ground source heat pump gives like 51 euros per megawatt hour. And as it is important to reduce the greenhouse gases and other emissions, we saw that quite good results to reduce the oil shale oil usage, like 60 to 70%. And this geothermal energy covered about 60% of the energy demand. And our third project, we finished this in July this year. But a few words about this technology. As the previous ones used closed loop system, then here it is there is drilled Estonian deepest drill hole, like 712 meters, and there we test and pilot coaxial pipe. The temperature in the borehole is highest comparing to other projects, like 20 degrees. And we test to use this heating energy to heat our geological survey research center and 2 drill core storages. And here one building is also using heating and cooling system. So we test how this how we can like store, not store, but how can this cooling regime will affect the heat well. But this, yes, this we finished the building to construction of this pilot station this year in July. We haven't, we do not have this heating period yet to show any results, but we'll see next year. So to conclude our pilot station, I can say that in Estonia the drilling capacities to drill medium deep drill holes, we didn't have this these machines, but now the capacity has improved, and the initial heating period results are quite promising, but still long-term performance requires extended observation to give like a longer period or longer results. And while the technology is basically simple, but still very complex, starting from from geology, geotechnology, drilling, then hydrodynamics, choosing heat pump, up to automation and how to follow the energy prices are currently occurring. And yes, it has to be think through all the time. Yeah, I think I said the challenges we face, that the integrating two systems, existing and new one, has been challenging. In Roosna-Alliku project, we see that the heating network requires high temperatures, while the ground source heat pump's maximum temperature is like 55 degrees for this, as previous heating period showed. There are some automation related issues that we didn't consider while we did public procurement, and so the Roosna-Alliku project needs this electricity price following system. While the electricity price is high, then this system should use oil shale oil. So basically, that's all my presentation, and happy to answer the questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helena. Very interesting presentation. And we can see that geothermal also is a quite fitting solution to colder regions such as the Nordics and the Baltics. At the same time, you also mentioned the cooling part, which of course, with the warmer summers, will be very relevant as well. Now I'm happy to give the floor to Rolf Iver Mittig-Hagemon, who's the General Manager at the Norwegian Heat Pump Association. Rolf, if you would like to share your slides, please go ahead, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will do that.
Perfect.
So I just... Okay, you can see the presentation?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. So my name is Rolf Iver Hagemon. I'm the General Manager of the Norwegian Heat Pump Association. We are an association representing the whole heat pump industry in Norway. From the smallest heat pumps to large industrial heat pumps. So what I'm going to talk about now is the Norwegian heat pump market, but I'm going to give a little introduction also about the energy system in Norway. But first, Norway, Sweden, and Finland are the largest heat pump countries in Europe per capita. So France is the country in Europe that sells the most heat pumps, but the Scandinavian countries is those that has the largest abundance of heat pumps. Denmark is growing, but Denmark has traditionally used more gas and district heating, while Sweden and Finland and Norway also has lots of district heating, but we also have a lot of heat pumps. Estonia and Lithuania are also one of the countries in Europe with largest abundance of heat pumps per capita. So there's a campaign going on all over Europe from the gas lobbyists trying to stop electrification of Europe. And the story they tell all the time, you might have seen the campaigns in Germany and UK and Poland and other places that says that the heat pumps doesn't work where it's cold, and you can't use heat pumps in old buildings. And especially in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and as you could see in Estonia also, that is proven to be wrong. As long as you use the right heat pump for the right purpose, there are heat pumps for all kind of appliances. And we have heat pumps from the southern part of Norway to the far north, so we have all kind of heat pumps everywhere that is proven to work even during really cold conditions. Of course, if you have a big building with big heating demand, a small air-to-air heat pump will not be able to heat the whole building. So you will see quite often geothermal heat pumps in large buildings where a large heating demand. This is a summary of the sales numbers that we have in Norway. For from the beginning, where we have had heat pumps for more than 40 years, but especially from the 90s and forward, we had a growth in heat pumps, especially the last 25 years. So we have sold more than 1.9 million heat pumps. You will see the distribution from different heat pumps types. Norway differs from rest of Europe with mostly direct electric heating. Most of the houses in Norway, they don't have a hydronic system, and that is why we have lots of air-to-air heat pumps. In those buildings that has a hydronic system, then you will see air, especially air-to-water and brine-to-water. But as to compare with Sweden, for instance, in Norway we have around 70,000 ground source heat pumps, while Sweden have 700,000. So the abundance of geothermal heat pumps in Sweden is much larger than in Norway. Here you will see the development of the sales of heat pumps since the 90s. It was especially from 2000 and after those years that we saw a really big growth of what is in blue, that is air-to-air heat pumps. So in number of units, it's air-to-air heat pumps that is dominating the market in Norway, and also they provide a lot of saving, not only for households, but also in total for the energy system in Norway. The sales of heat pumps in general are really correlated with prices on electricity. Of course, cold winters increased interest for heat pumps to save money, and heat pumps are also more comfortable than many other heating solutions. But we had really high price on electricity in electricity in 2003, 2006, 2010. That was top years, and then we had the Norwegian-Swedish green certificate market, where it was in that period of time. We built a lot of wind energy in Norway and Sweden, and the prices on electricity fell, and that you can see in the statistics. That you will see that the market did fall. You could see the same in Sweden and Finland too, that when it's lower prices, the sales numbers will fall, and then slowly it has increased. And then we had in 2020 the lowest prices of electricity for many, many years. And then after the invasion of Ukraine, the prices went to the sky. So we have had we had lots of sales of heat pumps the last years. If we should look at the market for air-to-water and brine-to-water, that is the color orange, and you will see the color of gray. It seems like small numbers compared to air-to-air, but if I show you with low numbers, you can see the development there too. So I will not go into detail now. You can all look through this presentation later if you want, and you can see more about how the market in Norway is. But I also want to show you the market for electricity, because together with Iceland, we have the lowest prices on electricity in Europe historically. And as you can see in 2021, 2022, 2023, the prices went up to air as the rest of Europe. But we introduced a subsidy schemes for electricity prices, and actually that helped many households to pay their electricity bill, but it also influenced the interest for energy efficiency. So the interest for investment in heat pumps, for instance, went to the sky in 2022 and 2023, and now we have seen a slight decrease again because of lower prices. There's many reasons why heat pumps are important. This shows the energy system in Norway, and finally energy consumption. You will see industry, transport, households, and everything is green is electricity. Everything in black and gray is gas, oil, or coal. So everything that is black or gray has to be replaced. And in Norway, the main strategy is to electrify society. And to electrify society, we need more electricity, and more electricity can be available through more production of electricity or through energy efficiency to actually save electricity that can be used for other purposes. That is why, in many ways, use of heat pumps are important for the energy system. And short about the energy system in Norway and the use of fossil fuel. So fossil oil heating has been banned in Norway for most buildings since 2020. Fossil energy is banned in all new buildings since 2015. Gas heating, you will see only at a few places at the western coast of Norway, but that will be phased out soon. Of course, we use fossil energy, as you could see here to the left, that we still use a lot of fossil energy in some industrial processes and heating processes in industry, but that will be phased out. And also we have among the highest CO2 tax on fossil energy in Europe. That's one of the reasons why we'll see more and more companies are replacing fossil heating or fossil use in the industrial processes with heat pumps or bioenergy or direct electric heating. This is a picture of one of the old hydropower plants we have in Norway. We have more than 98% renewable electricity in Norway. So you can see from the numbers, we have for the last years been a net exporter of electricity, but the demand of electricity is growing, as you saw in the first presentation. We will have more industry, we will have electrification of transport, etc., etc. So if we are not able to succeed with more energy efficiency or more production of renewable energy, then actually we will have troubles as the rest of Europe. So electrifying society is important, but then you need enough electricity. For the moment, 55% of society is electrified, so still we use a lot of fossil energy. Even if 98% of electricity is renewable, we still use a lot of fossils in other sectors. As some other countries in Europe, you will see that electric heating is quite common, direct electric heating, and also lots of houses has fireplace. Some use it only for the coldest days, but in some old buildings with high heating demand, some people use wood stoves together with electric heating or heat pumps throughout the coldest periods of the year. About electrification now, more than 90% of all new sales of cars is electric, and heating is electric also. But if you look at the statistics about electric heating in Norway, the use of heat pumps is a part of electric heating, and we have all kinds of heat pumps: air-to-air heat pumps, air-to-water heat pumps, ground source heat pumps. We have air-to-water heat pumps in both new and old buildings, in commercial buildings. But if a building has a really high heating demand, as I said, they normally use ground source heat pumps. This is an area in Oslo where they replaced the oil boiler, so all the buildings with red roof, they now have heating from ground source heat pumps, and we have these kind of projects all over Norway. We're also going in a direction with more natural refrigerants, so we have more and more projects where they use, for instance, propane or CO2, and especially in district heating, you will see also ammonia for heating. Talking about ammonia, we also have leading companies working with industrial heat pumps with natural refrigerants. So this is in Trondheim, ammonia heat pump. And the lower picture is from district heating company in Oslo. So we see a growth of use of heat pumps in district heating all over Norway. Some success factors and challenges for heat pumps in Norway. That one of the success factors that we will see in Norway, Sweden, Finland, France, is that if you have a strong electric grid, it's easier to electrify the society. And it's also important that you have the electricity and gas ratio, that heat pumps have to be more profitable than use of gas. Even if a heat pump is really efficient, if the gas prices is really low and the price on electricity is really high, if you don't have building codes or good subsidy schemes, difficult to reach the mass market. And it's important that you have taxes on fossils to phase out fossils, or actually bans. In the Nordic countries, it's really important to have high quality heat pumps. So we know for experience that if you have heat pumps that are not adapted for cold climate and the cold winters, they won't work, or they won't last for many years. Like I have an air-to-air heat pump that is 19 years old and still working. That's a Nordic model. And also it's important that you have enough skilled installers all around the country. So people that want a household, now want a heat pump, they actually could easily find an installer. The challenges for heat pumps is that, especially for air to water and brine to water, both in households and commercial buildings, they have a high investment cost. So even if it's profitable, many think it's too costly. And we see that if the payback time is less than 10 years, or if you can see that your monthly spending is less with a heat pump than other alternatives, people will invest in a heat pump. But if the if the payback time is too long, many will wait or will not invest in a heat pump. We also have building codes that don't for the moment give any initiative to choose heat pumps. So many buildings still have just direct electric heating. And as I show, that the price on electricity is important. And for the moment now, we have low electricity prices again. It's not that low, it's not profitable with the heat pumps, but it's lowering the potential. So with a little bit higher price on electricity, we will probably see an even growth. So to end up, like what is really, really important in general, and what we have done is we work a lot with skills. So we are the biggest training provider in Norway, training installers and consultants. We are working a lot with policies to make sure that we have a predictable and sustainable energy system and building codes and subsidy schemes, etc. And also we work a lot with consumer communication and political communication. It's important that you have success history. You can show stories that we saw already in some of the other presentations, showing stories about how heat pumps work, how much it costs, what kind of savings you have, etc. So with that, I will give the floor back to you, and I'm open for questions later today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this very insightful presentation, and for highlighting that heat pumps there are different heat pumps, and that according to the environment that then the adequate one can be chosen, and so that they can be applied everywhere, basically. Thank you so much for that. And now I have the pleasure to introduce our last speaker for today, who is Birger Laursen, Manager for International Affairs at the Danish District Heating Association. And I'm very pleased to give you the floor now, Birger, to talk more about district heating in Denmark specifically. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slide?
It's charging. I think it's coming. Yes, now it is there. Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. So hello everybody, my name is Birger Laursen. I'm Manager of International Affairs at the Danish District Heating Association. This association organizes practically all district heating utilities in Denmark, ranging from Hofor, which is the big supplier in the central part of Copenhagen, to small cooperatively owned district heating companies all over Denmark, with down to maybe 100 or 200 consumers. I will give you a little presentation on the situation for district heating in Denmark, how we are working on making this sector more sustainable. Let me see now. I'd like to change the slide here. There. A brief history here for district heating. Even before the 1970s, we had a district heating market share of approximately 30% in Denmark. But you could say that the first energy crisis we had in the 1970s, with an energy crisis because Denmark was entirely dependent on imported oil at the time. Suddenly we couldn't get it, or prices went up. So that was a defining moment for not only district heating in Denmark, but also for the energy sector, where a lot of regulation was introduced, including a heat law or district heating law, a heat planning act, and so on. We have over the years, and I'll come back to the legislation, we have over the years developed the heat market in Denmark, steadily growing district heating. We have been through, you could say, almost a shift of either fuel or technology in district heating over, every 10 years or so, every decade or so, over the past 40, 50 years or something like that. And today we are facing, to some extent, a similar crisis. We have concerns about our energy security, the supply of energy, and we also have concerns about the climate crisis that we have to address. And there we believe that district heating is an important instrument for Denmark and also for other countries. First, the Heat Supply Act was introduced in 1979, and on the basis of the heating crisis of the day, and the objective of the law was to ensure that we promoted the most socio-economic and environmentally friendly utilization of energy for heating of buildings and for hot water in the same buildings. And we should also promote the highest possible degree of cogeneration and promote the use of energy from renewable sources. So the emphasis on renewable energy already started back then, even though that concern for security of supply was the main driver behind the act. Part of the act was some, you could say, heavy regulation on the heating sector in the form or in the shape of a heat planning. We started out by a top-down procedure where all municipalities were told to start looking for available heat sources locally and also look for areas where heat demands could be aggregated through district heating, and making sure that whatever surplus heat or waste heat was available locally was fed into these district heating systems. And since Denmark at the time was importing all our fuel for our electricity production, we have no hydro in Denmark, and we don't have any nuclear. Everything was thermally, all our electricity was thermally produced. That meant we imported fuels for this. Where did that fuel land? That landed in our harbors. Where are harbors in Denmark? Well, they're in the center of the city centers, because that's historically how Denmark was developed. So we had electricity production plants, and we also have heat demands nearby these plants. So that one of the first focus of the heat planning was to ensure that all the waste heat from electricity productions was fed into the heat market. So we did that all over the country. Later on, we also started introducing our own gas, our own natural gas from the North Sea, and also planning to care of allocating certain parts of the market so that geographically areas were set aside for district heating or development of district heating. Other areas were set aside for development of a gas grid. And that carried us to a situation today where we have a high share for district heating. I'll show you a little statistics in a minute here. Now, in 2019, there has been sort of some ease of this planning system over the years as areas were covered, things were developed, and so on. But planning still takes place to some extent, but not so much as a planning with intent, where municipalities can tell people to connect to district heating, or tell a district heating network to develop, or supplier to develop a district heating network in a locality, but where sort of more nowadays more sort of analysis of the feasibility of certain heating solutions in an area. Gas is out as a planning option, you could say. So now we are more looking into dividing areas that today are not covered with district heating, looking into, or today are covered with gas, looking into, should the future be district heating, or should it be gas, or should it be out in the outmost outback? Should it be individual heating solutions that we provide? And today the situation for our heat supply or in buildings look like this. District heating is the dominant form of heating. If you look at multi-unit buildings at the middle column there, you could see that almost 95% of these buildings have district heating, and only a small share have today central heating with natural gas boilers. So there, district heating absolutely dominates. If you look at terraced, linked, and semi-detached houses, we also have a considerable market share, with gas some market share as well, and heat pumps coming into the picture here. And if you look at detached houses, we have not quite half of all the houses connected to district heating, but the gas is also have a considerable market share of 18%, and heat pumps have a growing share of 14.6%. If you look at industrial public buildings, etc., on the right side, you can also see that even in those buildings, district heating is the dominant form of heating in Denmark. What we're looking at today is how to deal with this. Let me add, by the way, central heating with oil. I know there's a market share of 3.5%, but this is not quite reliable due to the fact that this is based on public statistics at the building register, and that depends on individual or building owners reporting the heating solution to the register, and they don't necessarily do that. So this market share for oil is probably somewhat lower than this. At least the oil sector claims they do not sell enough oil for that number to be correct. But if we look at the gas sector, this is what we are dealing with today, basically trying to phase out gas in heating. And we have spent quite a lot of time over that over the past years here. As I said, we've done some heat planning has been conducted over the past 3 or 4 years, especially after the Ukraine crisis, where all the areas that currently are covered with district heating, covered with natural gas, or do not have any what we call collective heat supply, gas or district heating, have been analyzed to see what solution should be provided there in the future. Should it be district heating, or should it be left for individual heat pumps? And as you can see on the right side here, it's in Danish, I'm afraid, but the sort of light greenish third on the right, those are areas where an extension of the district heating or new build district heating has been approved in the heating analysis. Then you have sort of a dark greenish, well, good third as well. Those are areas with a heat plan for district heating, but that has not yet been approved by the municipality. And then they have the orange-red 20%, a fifth, which is areas with a heat plan for individual heat solution, meaning basically heat pumps. And then there are some areas that are still not conducted a heat planning. So you can see the majority of the change away from gas should be to district heating, and with some heat pumps involved. I noted that in Norway, the sale of heat pumps is very dependent on the electricity price. The same applies or the same mechanism applies in Denmark, because with now lower concerns for the energy security of gas supply, with lower prices of gas and so on, the emphasis on changing the shift away from natural gas has diminished quite a lot. We have seen a reduction in the number of private gas customers from a little more than 350,000 to some 275,000 third quarter last year, and we still see some decline in that, but we do not see the sort of the rapid development that was politically decided just a couple of years ago. And the reason for that is gas prices have come down, and there's less political emphasis on that. What we see in district heating, and I can shift again. This is sort of the heat production or the input of heat to district heating in Denmark today. And you can see in the middle there, biomass is the dominant fuel, you can see, but we also foresee a gradual growth toward a higher share of electricity in the future. That is at least the political aim. Also, waste heat will feature more. We do not see a tremendous growth for solar thermal, but some geothermal is also a focus here. But Denmark is not Iceland, so geothermal is not perhaps, or deep geothermal is perhaps not a big shot option in Denmark. What we're looking at is electrification, and I have a little more detail here. I think here you can see some examples, some recent examples here. We have some of the largest heat pumps in the world being installed or having been installed in here based on sea and seawater, on waste heat and ambient heat and geothermal. The refrigerant is often CO2 or is ammonia. We have seen lots of installations of electrical boilers, the largest being 80 megawatt, and we are also, as I mentioned, trying to develop our our geothermal sources to feed that into district heating. And I'll just finish with showing you a little bit of statistics on the introduction of electrical boilers in district heating. The capacity for on the electrical boilers and district heating is approximately 1.7 gigawatts, and for heat pumps it is, let me see now, I just have to move this little window here. It is almost 500 megawatts, and these are numbers from 2023, and the growth has continued also in 2024 and 2025. I saw also some recent statistics that approximately something like 2.5 gigawatts have been used of electricity has been consumed in district heating for producing heat. I think I'll end here with this brief overview of district heating in Denmark, and I look forward to the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Birger. Very interesting presentation, and I highlighted the motivation of energy security and climate targets, and the importance also of the heat planning to drive the transition and to ensure the replacement of gas. So, very interesting presentation. Now this brings us to the Q&A session. I see that there are some questions already popping up. I would like especially to encourage if there are any end users among our participants to ask very specific questions, as we have regional experts from different countries, different technologies, who will be able to give you more insights on the different technologies that could be applied in your country. To kick off the discussion, I have a first question for Alexander. What are recent developments in the field of heating and cooling that are being driven by innovation specifically, as we as the European Technology and Innovation Platform on Renewable Heating and Cooling are of course always very interested in the element of innovation. If you can elaborate for the Nordics, and if you have some information on the Baltics, for sure, please add so as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we at Aurora, of course, look mostly at the technologies as part of the electrification, so heat pumps or electric boilers, so the two build-out pathways that were just shown in the presentation. I guess there are technologically improvements that are happening, so a lot of innovation is happening, but I think the big levers that we see is more policy-driven. So changing the incentive structure, changing the costs to operate fossil-based heating, the cost of electricity, especially the taxes on electricity or the grid fees. I think those play a huge role in the adaptation in our view. And specifically also the example that I gave earlier, where we see this big uptake of large electric boilers in Finland. This is very much driven not by it's not much driven by innovation. So electric boilers, it's an old technology, but much more actually by, for example, the difficulties of operating heat plants based on biomass or wood in Finland. So the point I want to make is policy and regulation plays a huge role, whereas the technology is already there.
Thank you. That makes total sense. Thanks for explaining. The next question I would like to address to Markus. What barriers do you see that end users are facing when installing PVT systems, and how could those challenges be overcome in your opinion?
Yeah, a very good question. And we have been elaborating on that the last years, actually. And there are three main reasons, as we see it. Number one is the knowledge about the technology and the possibilities. So I'm really grateful to be here to share what can be new solutions that can be done. So, and number two is that we combine two different disciplines. It's the heat pump installers with the solar panel installers. And those traditionally didn't cooperate. But we see that most heat pump installers often work with an electrical company, and they are more and more into solar PV, and they find each other. We also have some multidisciplinary companies, and they are early adopters of this technology. And I would like to say we had a big project with an installer, multidisciplinary, called Vanco up in Norway. And they said, oh, was it this easy? The difference between PV and PVT. So we are hopeful. I think the solution is time. And the third is there is a gap in the market about easy to use, but still accurate simulation program to simulate PVT with geothermal storage and heat pump and the impact if you change any of the parameters. And that has been holding back PVT for some years, but we see very good initiatives now and are hopeful for 2026 it will be available for the market in the Nordics.
Thank you. I have a short follow-up question from the audience here as well. In terms of price difference between the, let's call them standards PV and the PVT panels, is it because, I mean, you said that it's not so much more complex, right? But yeah, is there maybe a lack of skilled installers still, since the technology seems to be a bit newer, at least from what I understand? Or is the price difference in the end not very relevant? Or is there even a price difference?
Yeah, of course, there's a price difference, and that has actually increased a little bit since the PVT market the prices for PV has fallen for many years. Now it's more stabilized, but if we look and with falling prices, it means what is the cost for customer? Well, it's the mounting system, inverters, installation cost, and if you take the complete cost for end customer, it's 2.5, maybe a small project, 3 times more expensive, fully installed with PVT compared to PV.
Thank you.
And then I have to add, then you get 6-8 times more energy from the rooftop. So
there's still an interest in getting PVT for sure. I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
The next question I would like to address to Helena. Could you tell us a bit more about common reasons why end users choose geothermal installations in Estonia, but also maybe beyond, in case you would like to elaborate on that?
Yes, in our point of view, we see still the main driver is actually the cost issues or money issues. And we see that in Estonia, at least, while the natural gas prices went up in 2022, then the geothermal energy have been rising. So the amount of drilling went up, and also ground source heat pump sales increased, but also this air source to water heat pump sales increased in 2022. And it is connected that energy security, well, we can have high price fuel-based energy, but if there are problems with to have it, or how to bring it for the end user, then the ground source heat pump, it's local, it's well-known technology, reliable, heat pumps are efficient, more and more efficient. So I guess these are the main drivers to use geothermal energy. And finally, I see the future, why it will increase is that we need to increase our buildings' energy efficiency, and together with this buildings efficiency, we renovate the heating systems as well. So I'm very sure that the Estonian future will be similar as in Denmark, Finland, Sweden. So the geothermal energy will increase again also.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. Good to know. My next question will be for Rolf. Can you elaborate on lessons learned and best practices drawn from the Norwegian heat pump market? In your presentation, you already touched upon different things that worked very well. Also, I remember you mentioning these green certificate markets, which were quite useful and boomed, allowed the market to boom. If you can elaborate on all this, please.
Yeah, sorry. Just to say something about the green certificate market, that was for renewable electricity. So that was just an explanation how the spot price market was influenced. So, no, what I want to underline is the same I said about the presentation, that it's really important to have enough skilled installers. So one of the reasons why the market for air-to-air heat pumps is so strong is that we have skilled installers in every municipality all over Norway. So, and there are advertisements on television and radio all the time. So it's easy to find a skilled installers. While many places in Europe, it's actually really hard to find a skilled installers that you can trust and actually could make an energy calculation and show you how much you can save. We're now working with new training programs for plumbers for air-to-water and ground source heat pumps, because we don't have such a strong market as Finland and Sweden. So the projects that Helena showed in Estonia, those kind of projects we have all over Scandinavia, and to work with those kind of projects, you need to have skilled planners, skilled engineers, skilled plumbers, and you will find them many places or all over Sweden and Finland, but in Norway, you have to know who to look for. So for that market to grow in Norway, we're still working with training, because a bad installation is bad for business, because then you have uncertified, no, you have uncertified, no, satisfied customers that is complaining, and it's, of course, you need satisfied customers and they have to work, and so skills is really important. But if you want lots of plumbers to actually be interesting, go and use money and time for training, they should know there's actually a market. So it's very important that the market is predictable, that you have building codes, or you have subsidy schemes, or you have measures that makes the market sound. So like if you're an installer, you should know that this is a market that will grow. So we see that in markets where it's growing, you will find lots of installers that are actually interested in being an expert, because if you invest time in training and you only do 1 or 2 or 3 installations a year, that will not be something you will be interested in. That this should be something you will specialize on. And at last, as I said, that economy is an important driver. So for instance, in Denmark, they've had a really, really high tax on electricity because they have lots of wind energy, but traditionally they have coal. No, they have lots of district heating and also gas network. But like to introduce to electrify, they have lowered the taxes on electricity, and it's really important all of Europe that the price on electricity should be too low, but it shouldn't either be too high, because then it's really really difficult to have a sound competition with gas. So of course, if fossils are banned, that is one thing, but most of Europe is not banned. So if the price of gas is cheaper than electricity, then it's difficult. So the gas and the price ratio between gas and electricity is actually the most important explanation of why you can see differences in different countries. Like in areas in Europe where gas is really cheap and electricity is really expensive, then it's harder for heat pumps. So yeah, predictable measures and politics is actually really important. And we hope for the ETS2 and other solutions all over Europe, but we know that the fossil industry is really strong in Europe. So what we need is like electrification, and that everybody knows that electrification together with district heating is what we need for the future.
Thank you very much for this detailed explanation. That was very insightful. Now, I actually have two questions for Birger. I'll start with the first one, which addresses again the element of innovation. So what role does innovation play in making district heating networks more sustainable specifically?
Well, I would argue that district heating systems are sustainable in themselves, but innovation is a necessity. I mean, district heating, the basic concept of district heating is pumping water around in pipes. I mean, that has been around for 2,000 years. I don't think we will see any revolutions there, but there's constant innovation going on. If we take the network, district heating is a very investment heavy sector. So we need to bring investment costs down. We also need to new technology to perhaps lower the level of skills needed when building district heating. Currently, if you build district heating networks of steel pipes, you need certified and skilled welders. These are in short supply and quite expensive. So if we can develop new piping system using fittings that can join pipes carried out by people with a lower skill class, then perhaps we can also speed up the introduction of the build-up of district heating. We are developing also the heat production. Traditionally, it was basically just a question of taking off heat from a supply that could be a power plant, could be a waste incinerator in an industry, and using boilers for backup. Now, district heating has become much more opportunistic, you could say. That is the reason we have electric boilers and heat pumps. That is to use the electricity when that is the cheapest. And in that sense, we need development also in the market model or the business model for a lot of what we're doing. We also need to develop district heating's business model towards the customer, whereas some individual renewable solutions are the solutions for the resourceful. District heating should also be the renewable heating solution for everybody, and not just something that the rich can afford. We also need a further evolution in the interaction with the electricity market. We are opportunistic. We use our electric boilers and so on. But currently, for instance, in Denmark, we face the problem that we are seeing a declining capacity to produce electricity when the wind doesn't shine. The wind doesn't blow or the sun doesn't shine. How do we deal with that? Can the district heating sector and the CSP plants we already have be involved? There are lots and lots of innovation going on in this sector, and we need even more.
I see, that's very interesting. And now I have a question from Peter Connor, who says, the achievement of 60% penetration for district heating obviously implies growth into areas with lower population density. So the first part of the question is, how has this impacted the economics of expansion outside the cities? And second, how has the political imperative to expand district heating being maintained? Has there been political pushback to district heating?
Yes, it's true. I mean, when we expand district heating in basically when I mentioned the individual detached houses, that is out in the suburbs. These are low heat dense areas where you typically wouldn't see district heating in many of the other countries. Why is district heating out there? Because as I mentioned earlier, all our electricity production was based on thermal production. So we had an abundance of waste heat. So for us, the option was either lose 100% of the waste heat by cooling it into the sea, or lose 20% in a distribution system out in the suburbs. So for us, that was a logical choice. other country, we probably wouldn't or couldn't repeat that today, because today our electricity production is not 100% dependent on thermal production. So there's a great extent of historical background in why district heating can have the market share it has in Denmark today. Other countries should probably not aim for a market share of 75% or something like that in households as we have. They should aim for something lower, but aim for having the heat dense areas covered with district heating, and then put bloody heat pumps everywhere else, including some large heat pumps in district heating, of course. Yeah. The second part of the question was
on the political imperative to expand district heating, and if there was any pushbacks.
In April of the year, the Ukraine war started in February. There was a press conference by our Prime Minister and 4 other ministers regarding the energy security, and all they could talk about was, we need to expand district heating. Now, 2 years later, gas prices have come down. There's less concern because we are shipping in LNG to Denmark and so on. So the political emphasis on expanding district heating has certainly declined. There is still, we have pushed for a phase out of the use of individual gas, and there's a reluctant political now to address this issue, as I guess there is all over Europe, because, as I said, prices have come down, concerns are lower, and there is sort of it's troubling when we see, like with the heat pumps in Norway, that sort of it is only when prices go high and people are concerned that they address the issue of heating. Why can't we, have a consistent long-term, way of addressing this issue? Because either today it's a security of supply concern, or a climate concern, or price concern, and it will be so in the future. These concerns will not go away, but they will not go away. We address this in a systematic way. That troubles me, but I have no answer to that, because I said heat planning, that was what we used. It is probably politically impossible to establish such a solution in many other countries unless you have a really, really burning platform, and people seem not to appreciate the burning platform we're all on.
I see. Well, thank you very much for answering. And indeed, the heat topic of heating and cooling as well, which is becoming more important, should definitely remain on the agenda and not only being pushed by crises. I see another question in the chat from Nicola de la Vega to Alexander. He says, if I understood well from your slides, there's around 80% renewable energy sources in Nordic countries already, and this will go up to 90% by 2060. Why only 10% increase in the next 35 years? And could you develop on the evolution of energy sources over the next years, and whether a 100% renewable energy source scenario is feasible and practical?
Yeah, of course. So this was just the electricity sector. So the electricity sector across the Nordics, we are at 80%. What makes up currently the remaining 20%? That's mostly a nuclear generation in Finland and Sweden. It's a little bit of generation also from peat or gas and oil across the Nordics, but it's very limited compared to the rest of Europe. So electricity in the Nordics is to a large share already decarbonized. That makes also then the deployment of heat pumps or electric boilers so attractive, because they will mostly run on green electricity, and definitely on almost carbon-free electricity, as the remaining bit is mostly made up of nuclear energy. So that's already very good. There will be even a higher share of renewable energy in our view. So as said, we're moving from 80% to 90% over the next decades, and that will be then enabled by that the build out is mostly coming from solar and wind, whereas in our view, nuclear remains kind of constant. That's a bit of a question mark, of course, given that the current Swedish government really wants to pay high subsidies to deploy more nuclear power. But we see this a bit more conservative, I would say. Yeah, there was a question around, is 100% renewable possible? Theoretically, it is possible. You can probably also, back up the system by peakers running on green hydrogen. There's a bit of a question around what are the other things to do as part of the energy transition. I think before establishing a 100% renewable electricity market, it's more important to really focus now on heat, transport and industry, because that's where we still have a long way to go. So I think before really aiming at 100% renewable electricity markets, decarbonizing the other sectors, electrifying them is more important from a policy perspective. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I guess that answers the question pretty well. We still have time in case there are other questions. Please feel free to post them in the chat. And also I would like, of course, to give the opportunity to the speakers in case you would like to comment on each other's questions, presentation, etc. You are very welcome to do so. At the same time, I know we've already had a very extensive webinar with lots of information that need to be digested. As I told you in the beginning, we will share the slides and also the recording with you. You will have the opportunity, of course, to get back to Andre or me in case you have any follow-up questions, and we are very happy to engage and to discuss. And yes, I do not see any incoming comments or question at this stage. Or is there someone who would like to say something? I see, Marcus, you're unmuted.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I have a question for Alexander. Looking at all energy, I don't remember, but it was geothermal energy presented as a energy source. The reason I'm asking, in Sweden, our statistics, when we report to European Union, it gives a very strange view, because 1/3 of the energy coming from geothermal is not represented.
Yeah, so there's probably a large share of geothermal definitely in the heat sector, but the slides I showed were focusing on the electricity sector, right? And that's where we don't have much geothermal producing electricity right now. Does that,
okay.
Or did you mean something else?
No, I understand. Your focus was electricity and not energy as a whole.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, then I get it.
Rolf, you see your hand.
Yeah, just a short comment on that, because in Scandinavia, Nordics, when they talk about geothermal, Marcus, it's shallow geothermal. That's not the use of geothermal for producing electricity that we have on Iceland. And we'll see what will happen in Estonia if you will have like some kind of breakthrough, so you can produce electricity from some deep geothermal. There are projects in Hungary, and there's some places where they have access to high temperature, not that deep. But I know about the Swedish statistics, so they are talking to the Swedish Energy Agency about providing more precise data on the impact of heat pumps and geothermal heat pumps in the Eurostat statistics. So it's easier to see actually the share of renewable energy that you get from on the ground, but that is only for heating, Marcus. And so I think that you thought about, and not geothermal for production of electricity.
It was an excellent clarification, Rolf. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. I'm happy to see that you're also engaging with each other's technologies. But if there's nothing else to say at this stage, I would like to thank everyone very much, all the participants who listened in, but also our dear speakers who gave us excellent presentation with fantastic insights. Thank you so much. And with that, have a nice day, and I hope to see you soon on another occasion. All the best. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.